Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Jessica Jones, aka the Cryptid Huntress, has once again ventured into the Fox Den for an episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. It is always absolutely epic to link up with the Midnight Society. Much better. And now that I am charged, revamped, and the shackles have been released by Jessica Jones, it is time to take a walk into the darkness with the Cryptid Huntress and myself. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. Jessica Jones, aka the Cryptid Huntress, has decided once again it is time for the Midnight Society to hang out and figure out what the heck is going on with the Dogman. And tonight we are going to go down south to Jessica's neck of the woods and try to bring some clarity as to what's occurring. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm just a little tired. We've been out doing some boots on the ground field research all day down in middle Georgia, where we have lots of dogman sightings and reports, Bigfoot sightings, UFOs, and all sorts of weird, strange cryptids down in middle Georgia.
Great stuff right there, my friend. And no, I always appreciate you a lot and some time because I know you're super busy. And to make you feel better, like I had previously stated before we started recording, this is my third podcast today. I've worked on editing a video a little bit. I have like 15 minutes left on it. I created a logo for a bar apartment, let my friend's dog out, fed their cat as well. And I still need to consume some food for myself, shower, and then clean my room up for a little bit. So I totally feel you on the brain. I'm trying to plug it in, but it's, not connecting correctly.
Yeah, well, you're cranking out these shows and putting out amazing content. Wonderful guests, wonderful experiences. I'm super impressed with everything you're doing right now. And I think it is wonderful for the community, especially with the North American Dogman Project. I think it's wonderful that you're doing all this work with such great people. And so I'm honored to be here and to hang out with you. And I always make time for you, always. And I think it's the more people we can get this message out to tonight, the better. And just the awareness of these cryptids out in the field, of the dogmen, the werewolves, whatever we got going on out there. I think it's super important what you're doing, and I'm super proud of you.
Such kind words, and I appreciate you, Ton. You are one of my best friends. And also, I look back in the past, too, before I even ever got a chance to speak to you. You were one of the first people that I saw your Instagram when I tried to get a hold of you. So it's just awesome to be able to sit down and collaborate and be able to communicate with you consistently. And again, thanks for the kind words. I just really tried to make sure to just have a ton of good minds just working together and just really making sure that, yeah, everyone is well rounded, but you obviously have people that specialize in certain aspects, like our zookeeper, and then we have our environmentalist, our spelunker. So it all is just the cog to the machine. And it's really great to be around like minded thinking, but also people that are super intelligent because I love to learn. And actually, when I spoke to my biologist earlier, my brain was blowing up. But at the end, he said that I ended up teaching him a ton as well, which was amazing because that's really how things get accomplished is when we're able to bounce things off each other and just work together. So it is good to have a really great squad of people because you know how it is, unfortunately, just in life in general. There's just a ton of abrasive people and people that just seem to think that they always have the answers or just always know everything. And I always just promised myself that I would never be that individual and I would always just try to learn.
Oh yeah, you can never stop learning, for sure. And as a matter of fact, I woke up this morning to having a meeting with cryptid warfare operators today. We've got another trip planned coming up in a couple of months. They're going to be coming to Georgia, actually, where we have a lot of cryptids, a lot of, like I said, Dogman sightings and reports, werewolves, Bigfoots, ETs. Where I was today is actually in an area called the Troop Herd Corridor, and it is kind of towards the middle west part of Georgia. And man, it never disappoints. We have so much high strangeness out there, and we didn't have a lot of activity today. I got some really cool tracks and some scratch marks all over the ground that were, I think they could have been a big cat. I did send them off to our wildlife biologist, some pictures of it, and he's kind of on the fence, not knowing exactly what they are, but some really strange scratches in the ground, like claw marks on the ground. So we're gonna look a little deeper into that. But I got the guys coming down here in a couple of months. We're gonna do us a nice little expedition out there and go dogman hunting and see what we can come up with. Because the last time I hung out with you, we talked about the Wolf Woman of Mobile, Alabama, which is right here beside where I live. I live right on the border of Georgia and Alabama, and I love the local cryptids out here. I love the legends, the lore, and I got a lot of friends out here. A lot of people who've had experiences. People on my team, just really close friends of mine, who are not on my team, and they've had personal experiences with dogmen. And I thought maybe tonight we could talk about a couple of those experiences and maybe even get into some of the Georgia werewolves and dogmen that we have out here, if that's cool.
Of course, it's cool, my friend. I'm going to throw you the mic right here and let's dance.
Well, I wanted to kind of explore this one a little bit. There's a couple of them, a couple of experiences my friend Jeff Townsend had. I want to give a huge shout out to Jeff Townsend. He's a extremely wonderful person, just a good friend of mine, and he's always got my back no matter what. He's been on my show before, and he came on to talk about having an actual dogman in the crosshairs of his rifle. And there was a moment where he had the chance to pull the trigger on this thing, and he didn't. Okay, he didn't. And he described this dogman. This was in South Georgia. It was very up close, but he said that it was a hyena type of a dogman. And when he looked at it through the scope of his rifle, when he honed in on it, it actually looked right at him and was like, it's almost like it was telepathic communication. Okay, I don't know if you hear about this a lot, but I hear about it a good bit. When people encounter a dogman, there is some sort of telepathy, some kind of telepathic communication, almost like a mind speak, or just kind of putting the energy out there that, don't hurt me or I'll get you, basically. But he said that the animal, and I'm going to call it an animal, but the being, this dogman, looked right at him, and it was startling to him. And he put the gun down. He watched it until it went away. But he said that he had it in his crosshairs, and he was about a second away from pulling that trigger, but he just couldn't do it. It had a consciousness to it. Okay, it was almost human-like in a way, and he said he just couldn't do it. So I think that's super cool. I wanted to share that with you. He also told me an experience that he had where he had seen a dogman that had breast. Okay, so he's always talked about this. He talks about having an experience with a female dogman, and when I asked him about how he knew that it was a female, he said, "Well, she had breasts, just like a human." And I think that's one of the questions that I always kind of posed that question when I first got into the whole dogman phenomenon. It's like, well, I know there's women, dog men. What do they look like? Do they have like teats? I know this is terrible. Hey, we got to talk about this. We're going to explore dogmen. Do they have breasts like a human, or do they have like multiple like teats? And he said they're just like, it was just like a female with two, breasts or whatever. So I don't know. I'd love to talk with you about that tonight, because I don't know if you've gotten reports of female dogmen and what those reports, how they describe what they look like.
Great stuff right there, and thanks for sharing. Very interesting. And when it comes to the female dogman reports, yeah, I don't know the exact number that I have recorded, but I would say it's probably between like the 5 to 8 range. And I have somebody recently who came on named Cody that had spoken about seeing a female dog that looked just as you had stated with the description, along the lines of that. And in the other cases, it was blue eyes and a lighter coloring, which normally it is. And also, one of the gentlemen happened to be in the LBL, and he was enjoying the evening and heard like scurrying through the tall grass because he had his windows down and just music turned down, just driving. And he slowed down, and then he said he saw what looked to be a dog-like creature, but with bright blue eyes, and it was lighter colored. And he said it just was looking behind it as if to be waiting for something. And then a group of pups came out, and they were like nipping at each other and playing around before they ran across the road. And then the adult followed. But pretty much in all the cases, like I said, the females usually have the blue eyes and tend to be lighter coloring. And that is an interesting aspect that ties into the Latin American cultures, where they have different terminologies for it, but the dark black with the shiny red eyes, or the males that take people, and then the white ones with the blue eyes, or the females that try to interject and basically keep the peace between both sides. And that's interesting because, fast forward to more modern day times, in the reports, like I said, they have blue eyes and are lighter coloring, and usually seem to be more docile.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I actually came across some pictures this morning of an alleged female dogman out of, I want to say it was in Russia or somewhere in another country. And it looked more, to me, it looked kind of like a cat woman or something. I know that sounds odd, but it did have more of a canine face, but the body looked kind of feline, which was really odd. But yeah, it's just it's an interesting take, because there's definitely dog women out there. It's just they're not seen so often. I wonder why that is, though. Why are we not seeing more female dog women? Why are there not as many reports? I was looking on Dogman Encounters. My friend Vic Cundiff has a fantastic podcast called Dogman Encounters, and he puts out some amazing content with eyewitness firsthand reports out there. And there's been a couple. He only has a couple of accounts in Georgia of Dogman Encounters. One is in Fannin County, I believe, and the other's in Habersham County. Habersham is actually up in North Georgia. It's where it's close to where I do some of my research, some of the boots on the ground research that we're up there doing. Lots of Bigfoot sightings as well. It is rural, a lot of country, forest, and it's not as heavily populated as a lot of the places around Atlanta and stuff, of course. But both of those encounters are very similar to what was reported near where I live. People calling into the call center, 911. I think both of these encounters actually involve people who encountered dogmen in the road while they're driving at night, which is very common, it seems, with these reports that we're getting. There was a dogman sighting about a mile from my house. Some people called in saying that they had hit a dog, in the road, and it was a large. They thought it was a wolf, and they said that it probably did some damage to their car, and they thought maybe they had unalived it, but it got up and it ran off on two legs, and it completely threw those people for a loop. It was a couple. They were very upset about it. And these accounts that I've read over on Vic Cundiff's Dogman Encounters website sound very similar to the two, to that encounter in the West Georgia, where I live, Northwest Georgia, actually. People seeing them on the side of the road. One truck actually ran over one, okay, just like the couple that was down the road from where I live in Northwest Georgia. So I don't know what's up with that. It kind of sounds like, this sounds terrible, but like I call them my I can't say the word because we're on YouTube, of course, but when you unalive yourself, the unaliving squirrels, and I know you have a pet squirrel, but you're driving down the road and like squirrel, I know it's horrible. I love squirrels, but like sometimes they'll run out in front of your car and it's like they switch position and like they run out. Like I had that happen at my house, okay, all the time. It looks like they're going to go out in front of you. You have to slam on your brakes because they switch at last minute and they run out in front of your car. It's kind of like that. That's what the feeling that I get about these dogmen. It's like, how are cars, and these cars say, the people in these reports say they weren't going that fast, but the dogmen will run out in front of their cars and they get hit. So it's kind of that. It reminded me of the squirrels, okay, that run out in front of my car sometimes. I've not hit one, okay, just so you know. Squirrel lives matter, okay, and we're not going to let them get hurt. But that's kind of the MO. Do you know what I mean?
No, and that's all great stuff. And actually, because I did some research on that, so the reason squirrels do that more or less is because by design in nature, no predator is as large or as fast as a car and comes at them like that. They are not really adapted to understanding that, and they are going in one direction, but then the reason they turn around is because they get spooked, and then the way back is probably the way back to their nest to safety. And unfortunately, that's when that happens, because like I said, in nature, nothing that large and that fast is predatory towards them. So they're not, yeah, they don't know how to deal with it. I mean, when Earth was created, cars weren't really something that was implemented. And to making the reference as to what you were saying as well, a lot of animals do like to lay on pavement though at night, because throughout the day with the sun and all that heat and energy, it's accumulated in the pavement, so it stays warmer. A lot of animals, yeah, will just lay on that because it's warm. And it's no different than something, for example, like reptilian that likes to sunbathe in the morning, and get some of that extra energy. I've just heard about that a bunch. And to tap on to what you were saying about why there's probably not so many female reports, my thought process on that is because just in general with nature, females are way more skirmish and need to protect themselves. Males are predisposed in nature, meaning that usually, males will be unalive for doing something stupid. And I know this for a fact because, yeah, I have a pet squirrel, but the other neighborhood squirrels, the males would be the ones that always come up first. They're always way more bold to come take the peanut or the nuts out of my hand and let me pet them and stuff. It takes a lot more work to get the trust of the female. Again, it would make sense with, say, dog man or dog woman sightings. You're going to see probably more males that are basically being stupid or not caring so much, and the females are going to have to protect themselves, especially if they have pups and things like that. So they're not going to put themselves in vulnerable positions.
Yeah, that reminds me of birds too. You know how birds, a lot of times the male birds will be very colorful and brilliant colors, and the females are more camouflaged and will be natural colors like browns and
Yeah, so the colorful one
in.
is on the menu, whereas the other one is
Yeah,
more hideable. Yes.
yeah. It's what do you call it? Survival of the fittest kind of. It's almost like the males are the decoys, okay, protecting the women and children. So that's the way it should be, okay.
No, it really
And
is, as you said, predisposed like that. Same thing with like bucks and such. They try to lead off the predator away from the doe and the fawns. And yes, exactly. I think it ties into, like I said, why people just don't tend to maybe see females as much, but also a lot of times it is dark out, so you're not going to really see some of those other glands. But as stated,
I'm sure some of the eye coloring can be different, but if I was to actually be able to pull up all the cases, I'm pretty sure the ones that we all have documented that their eyes were like a baby blue, kind of like ocean blue color.
Oh, very interesting. That's really cool. Very cool. I was just thinking, we were today when I was out doing that boots on the ground research, we were not too far from where Georgia's werewolf is buried. Okay, and we didn't go there. She's buried over in Talbot County, I believe. Not too far, or maybe it's Troop. I can't remember, but Emily Isabella Burt, we didn't go to the cemetery there, but out of respect, they don't like people wandering into I think it's a family plot. So we didn't go today, but we were super close to where she's buried. And we did go visit Mahaley Lancaster's grave today. My friend Bryce and I of Esoteric Atlanta over on YouTube. Bryce and I do a lot of shows together, and we've actually done a bunch of research together on Emily Isabella Burt, the Georgia werewolf. Well, she's an alleged werewolf, okay, but I think there's a pretty good bit of evidence to say that if there was a werewolf, she was probably a werewolf in Georgia here. But we were literally just miles, maybe I'm going to say like 10 miles down the road from where she's buried today.
Straight up bizarre stuff right there. Pretty cool for sure. Yeah, that's a really gnarly case, and that's another big difference as well. Is again, I don't know the most really about werewolves, and I'm kind of trying to work on a hypothesis with my science team because again, there's a ton of Dogman evidence, but we actually think a lot of these potential sightings where people see these things in clothing, well, the cynocephali wore clothing, wore human clothing, animal furs and such, and we have a hypothesis that just like every other great culture, their culture fell at a point in time, no different than the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans. It happens, the great Chinese cultures, I mean, anywhere, okay? And now that they're not a massive civilization anymore, they are seen more sparsely. But I think people just automatically would assume, hey, it had clothes on, it had to be a human at a point in time, but it doesn't necessarily have to have been. And also, dogmen always have tails in Hollywood depiction. Werewolves don't, but it's just the whole aspect of the historical stuff with the dogman and the cynocephali that I think a lot of that kind of just got thrown into the same basket and mixed all up with like the Rougarou and like the werewolves and such, because I think it's kind of all in one.
I think so too. I think you could be right on that. But I don't know. The more I do research on it, and the more people that I have that join me on my shows and stuff, it seems like there is a distinction between dogmen and werewolves. So I don't know though. I want to say that's not my area of expertise here. No, nobody's an expert. We know that. But I mean, I do talk about it a lot, and I guess we probably do know a little more than the average human about dogmen and werewolves. Not meaning that we're experts on it at all, but
hopefully, or we're not doing a good job, right?
Right. I know. Well, all we're doing, what we're doing right now is just gathering as much information about it as we can with eyewitness reports. And like I said, that's the best we can do at the moment. But okay, here's the funny thing. It really just depends on whose podcast you listen to. Isn't that terrible? But it's true. There's certain, different people have different ideas about what they are. Okay. And what's out there. So I like to keep it kind of open. I always keep an open mind about all of it. Some people say that werewolves are only made through transformation, which is, through black magic and dark rituals and dark magic practices.
If anything, I would say that would be, in my opinion, the only way there could be any merit to that. Whereas like the skinwalkers and such, they never turned into werewolves. They're just he or she on all fours, okay? They're just the dominant version of that animal now. So yeah, that makes sense if I was to have to put like my foot in the pot and be like, where would it come from,
Hey, I got both feet in the pot. Okay. All the time. I live in the pot. Okay. And just trying to figure this stuff out, but it is what it is. I think that there are I hate to say it, but S-walkers. Okay. I'm going to say S-walkers. I get in trouble if I say that too much. The actual word. I think they're real. Okay, I've met a man who actually claimed that he turns people into them, who is a shaman, and I believe him. Okay, I believe him, and even if people out there don't believe in this stuff, there are people who do believe in it, and it is very real to them, and it's very real. If you were to have a face to face with a werewolf, I think that your opinion would change if you didn't believe in them. Okay, you know, you don't know until you're right there face to face with one.
So true. Again, very well stated. And it's just super interesting because, when people would say that they saw them on full moons, well, animals love being out on full moons. So was it coincidental that you just happened to see this dogman on a full moon, or was it because of the full moon?
Yeah. I've done plenty of shows on and done a lot of research on rituals and ritualistic, just backwoods cults out of the South, especially. I'm down here in Georgia. We have a lot of backwoods cults, and that's something you really have to look out for. Last night I had talked about, I covered a case, the Dennis Martin case out of the Smoky Mountains, where there was a little boy who went missing. He vanished. His family was camping in the Smoky Mountains in 1969. It's been, what is that, 55 years or something? It's been
I'm
a
a bad
while.
math person, so we're going
Yeah,
to take
I know,
your
right? Me
numbers
too.
unless the calculator is in front of me.
It was, wait, it was longer than that. So I mean, it's been a long time. Okay. And he, oh my God, he disappeared. He's never seen again. People, some people, there was a witness that said they saw like a feral human potentially carrying him off, or a Bigfoot, like a hairy man was running off with like a child in a red shirt, and he was wearing a red shirt that day. I did I do this thing called remote viewing, and I'd been given this as a blind target, and I do believe that it was a human that kidnapped him and potentially unalived him at some point. But the stories are out there, and people, there's a lot more out in these mountains and stuff than we could ever imagine. And part of my data from that target actually did involve ritualistic sacrifice. Okay. And I think that we look into all these missing people, the missing children that we have all over the country. We have an epidemic of just massive proportion of children that go missing every year. And I think that, I mean, I hate to say it, but it could be dogmen and werewolves or whatever could be taking some of these people, but I don't think it's a lot of them. I think it's people doing magical practices and rituals and stuff. And I think I think that's going to be the majority of where a lot of these people are going, or people being snatched up and used for rituals and stuff. So, it's just food for thought, something to think about. And even if we don't believe in it, there are people who do.
Reach, my friend. That's some straight up gnarly stuff. Before we do let you go, I got a really gnarly encounter that you might not have heard about that I'll get to in just a second. But to make the reference about children as well, people don't realize that baboons and primates in other countries do that as well. They come into the village and snag and feast on little kids and stuff. So it is predatory behavior. I mean, we as people have a twist on what we think is considered humane and not humane, but nature's twist on things is much different than that. So obviously to us being like, oh my goodness, like that's savage behavior from those baboons. But is it savage behavior because only humans think we're better than other animals? That baboon doesn't care about that. It's hungry.
Yeah, it's got a tasty snack there, a little appetizer, and they're gonna eat what they're gonna eat, and so we have to keep our heads on a swivel. Okay, our head. Most of us don't have multiple heads. Okay, but we got to keep our head on a swivel when we're out in the woods, we're out in the field, when we're at these national parks, especially. That's where these clusters of missing people are occurring, and a lot of those are children. So we got to be aware, and just keep an eye on your kids.
Facts. And right now, let's see what you think of this before we let you roll. Georgia, 1829, the Georgia swamps. So we're near Georgia/Florida. Two hunters are in a remote part of the swamp when they find large canine-like human footprints stuck in the mud. Not familiar with any wolf
that large in the area of Georgia or Florida, the hunters become uneasy but set up camp nearby for the night because they have no choice. Sometime early in the morning, they are awoken to loud howls, snarls, and human like screams. Startled, the two hunters grab their rifles and cock them. Suddenly, they see a large, bipedal, shaggy, dog like creature showing its teeth and snarling at them from behind a large tree. Mortified at what they had just witnessed, the two men run back to their establishments and soon gather a large group of other men with shotguns, rifles, and a ton of other weapons to help track this creature. For 2 weeks, the hunters searched the area and finally find some mysterious looking tracks that seem to resemble what the original hunters had seen. Deciding to set up camp and track the creature in the morning, the men doze off. Out of nowhere, everyone is awoken to the sounds of them being attacked by what seemed to be a 6 to 9 foot dog like creature. The animal viciously unalived a number of the hunters immediately before the others began firing upon it. Hitting the creature numerous times, it began to scream out in pain and rage before unaliving two more of the terrified hunters. Finally, after being lit up, the animal succumbed to its injuries. Fearful for more of the creatures were on their way after all the noise and commotion, the men quickly vacated the area.
Wow. Okay, what year was that?
1829, Georgia swamps.
Okay. Okay. Well, that sounds like the same story of the giant attack of 1829 out of the Okefenokee swamp. That's interesting that you mentioned that it might be a dogman. And see, the story that goes with the locals down there is that was actually it was a giant. And some people thought it was a Sasquatch.
Wow.
And I was going to say, I was going to actually connect that to the giant attack in the Okefenokee of 1829. But I think these two stories have melded together here. But nonetheless, this really did happen. There were men that were actually pulled apart. Their bodies were savagely pulled apart. Their heads were pulled off. And that was something that I had looked into a while back. I have some friends, because I did research around that area, down in middle Georgia to South Georgia. And I had there's a lady that I know who grew up at the Okefenokee right there on the corner, on the edges of the swamp. And she said that it was known for generations that a race of giants lived inside the swamp of the Okefenokee, deep within the middle of the swamp where you couldn't actually get to it. And the story is actually the people that were attacked were from a hunting party from down in Florida. There was a land lottery that happened. Now this was in the papers. You can find the historical records of all of this. And there was a land lottery back in the 1800s. They were giving land away, swamp land, and just to have people come out there and settle on it. Okay. And it was a government land lottery, and families got all this land around the swamp. And these two men, there was a man and his son, decided they were going to pack, a week's worth of food and go hike into the swamp to see what all was out there, what kind of resources were out there. If there was anything else, just to explore, to see if they could go hunting. And they said about a couple days in, they came across this gigantic footprint. It was they said it was a human footprint, but it was huge. I can't really remember if it was 20 inches or bigger. It was just a gigantic footprint. It might have been bigger than that. And so they got scared. They packed up all their stuff and they went back to where they were living. And word got out to the people down in Florida, some rowdy Floridians that were hunters heard about these footprints, and they wanted to come up and track whatever that creature was. Sounded like a giant. That's what happened. Now, and like I said, the story that I've always been told was that it was either a Bigfoot or a regular giant. I had done a remote viewing target of that someone tasked me that as a target, a blind target, and I was seeing what I thought was a giant human out there. So it's interesting how the story has kind of, there's different renditions of it.
I was just gonna
But
say about
yeah,
that. Is
yeah,
unfortunately how with cryptids and stuff sometimes, because I was preaching about that as well. I feel like a lot of times some of the stories are being kind of mixed up together in the same gist of things, because yeah, some of the individuals that I'd spoke to down there, that was what they had informed me of. As you're talking too, that there's also other depictions as well. So sounds like this really did happen, but it sounds like there's I guess a confusion as, was it a giant, was it a Bigfoot, was it Dogman, or yeah.
yeah. Well, the locals say down there, and I know locals down there. They say that it was actually giant humans,
Jesus.
a race of giants. But the story, if you look it up online, the majority of and here's the thing about this day and age is that we have the internet and people recycle stories over and over
Yep.
again. Okay. And there's just a whole lot of, telling the same story over and over again and embellishing a little bit and changing the narrative just a little bit.
You're
But it's
there. Yep.
generally the same story. But that's just the day and the age that we live in right now. It's just a whole lot of recycled information. It's not a whole lot of new stuff. Okay. Like, it's just historical accounts of things like giants, dogmen, and Bigfoot. That's why I really like getting out and doing my own research and, having my own encounters to talk about. But it's good to hear these stories, but it's interesting also to see how the story is changed across the board sometimes.
Yes, 100%. And there's, before I let you go, just something else recently too. At what point in time there was a tooth that was floating around that somebody of the Cherokee Nation was claiming at a point in time that it was Sasquatch. But then also recently was floating around in dogman groups that now supposedly is a dogman tooth. So it's strange. It looks like it could be a tooth, but it also could be a nut. I have not had a chance to look at it myself, and I believe the individual is still in possession of it. But yeah, so like you just said, was it a Bigfoot tooth or is it a dogman tooth, or did somebody just change the narration to make it fit, you know?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. That's where the research comes in, and having to get a little scientific with it. If you can get your hands on it, that tooth. Okay. On the
Yes,
tooth.
exactly.
Right.
100%. But no, I appreciate you stopping in tonight, like always, my friend, and coming in with the heat. It's great. And also, I love learning more myself, and just being able to sit down and collaborate is a great thing. So I always do appreciate your time and look forward to future collaborations.
Of course, I always enjoy being here, and we got to unravel some of these mysteries tonight, and to kind of, get our feet in the pot. Is that what you said?
Yes.
We had our feet in the pot tonight, and that's really cool in regard to the giant attack in the Okefenokee of 1829. Was it a giant? Was it a Bigfoot? Or was it a dog man? That's the question.
Yes, so true. And it's so funny. It just reminds me of, I believe, who said Vince Vaughn in one of his new movies. He said something about like a dirty sock on the highway. And the guy's like, no one's ever said that. He's like, yeah, but no one ever said anything until someone said it. So,
Oh my God, no truer words have been said. Yes.
so when I was thinking about the foot in the pot, it just came out. But I mean, I don't even know if that's a real saying.
We're getting our feet in the pot. I like it. Hey, it's our new saying now. Okay, getting our feet in the pot. We're like, yeah.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will catch you on the next one.